Hello, Libra lady. How are you today?
Hi, I'm great. Libra lady, how are you today?
I'm great. It's always nice to be in good company with not only just another Libra, because then I feel like there's already a love fest, but to find out that your birthday is October 7th, the same as mine, is just
I know.
like my mind is blown.
I know. Mine is too. I'm still trying to kind of take that in because that doesn't happen very often.
No, it really doesn't.
I
I
know
mean,
very few.
I'm
Yeah.
sure like you, when you meet another Libra, it's immediate connection because that's the core and essence of who we are. But I don't actually know another October 7th, to be honest with you. Lucky number 7.
I love it. I love it. Now
Exactly.
you do.
Now I do. And I'm grateful because I feel like in hearing your story a couple of weeks ago, I couldn't wait to get on the call with you and have you deliver it to our audience because it's truly a story of love and life and really bringing the real dream to life. And I don't think enough people follow their dreams.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me. First of all, let me just say that I am just honored to be here and I love what you do. And so thank you for that and for those kind words. And yeah, if not love, then what?
Yeah,
Right?
and I agree with that, and I love that you said that. I love love. So,
Yeah.
anyways, I want to introduce our podcast community to Natasha Sizlo, and as you can already tell, she's just a special woman who comes from the lens of love. And but beyond that, she is a leading real estate agent in the Los Angeles area. She is a mother of two. And in addition to that, she just wrote and released a best selling memoir called All Signs Lead to Paris. Correct. Point to Paris, not lead. It's All Signs Point to Paris. And I have to say, we were introduced by each other to Felicia Alexander. And Felicia was like, I think you would love this book. And in fact, you should interview Natasha for your podcast. And when I read the excerpt about your book, I was like, I'm in. How do I meet this woman?
Mm, I love Felicia.
Doesn't Felicia's another connector. Let's face it.
Incredible human being. Yeah.
Yes,
Yes. And when she said the
exactly.
same thing about meeting you, I was like, wait, what is happening? This is great.
Yeah,
And it
and I have
is.
to
Look at
say,
us.
when I heard your story, it's just there was so many interesting parallels about desire and following your heart and it really resonated with me and I can't wait for you to tell people more about it. And in fact, why don't we start by you actually kind of backing up a little bit and telling the story about how did you go from, I think everybody, there's a writer in all of us, as we know,
Right.
right?
Right.
But to pursue it is a whole other story and to follow through and write it. And I think you had a very short period of time that you had to write it in, if I was correct. But
Yeah.
for you to kind of talk to people about, I was a real estate agent and then I decided to write this book.
Right. Yes, I am a real estate agent at the agency, and I had been doing that. And well, I was a writer in my early 20s. I worked for
Mhm.
magazines. I was a magazine editor and a magazine writer, but not for a very long time. And, magazines is not an easy industry. It's really hard now, but it was really hard then too. So I gave up writing 25 years ago. And I think my writer's heart was still there, but it had been covered and layered with things, perceived failures,
Mhm.
my magazine folding or just having a hard time getting jobs or motherhood. I wanted to be a good mother. I wanted to be a good, fill in the blank. And I kind of gave up on my dreams, not consciously,
Mhm.
but it happened over those many years. Um, this journey has a lot to do with astrology. And I was a total non-believer before any of this began in 2018. And I can talk about that story too, but to stay on the writer part of it, I met with an astrologer and she told me, you're a writer. You're very good at real estate, but it's not what brings your soul satisfaction. Like your point of destiny is to tell a story, she told me.
Mhm.
And I thought, what is she talking about? She was talking about writing a book. She was talking about, where it would lead. And I thought, at that moment in time, my father was dying, my career was, I was just at a real crossroads. And she's talking about writing a book. I mean, I couldn't even sit down and read a book at that point in my life. And so I went on this wild journey, which we could talk about if you want to, but came back and from this trip to Paris where I did all these crazy things based on that astrology reading. And I remember where I was standing. I was standing right outside of my house and I looked at my phone and I got an email from a literary agent. I had documented this entire journey on Instagram, and the literary agent, her name is Jen Marshall. She's fabulous. I had no idea even, I know what a real estate agent does, but a literary agent, I never thought that I would, be so lucky to get on the phone with one or get an email from one. And she said, if you want to write a book, I think there's a book here.
Wow.
And I thought, oh my God, like if an astrologer tells you you should start writing and then you get an email out of nowhere, like a top agent in this industry. And I thought, okay, I can't not look at this and consider it. And it took me a while to do it because I was terrified because that blank page is the scariest thing ever. But when COVID, it was, I think I really started when the beaches were closed and the hiking trails were closed, and I'm very ADD and I have a hard time sitting still. And I was forced to stay in my home by choice,
Yes.
but stay-at-home orders. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to try this. And I did. And I sold, I wrote a couple chapters. I sent it to her and she says, yep, you got a book here. And I was like, wow. And I wrote a book proposal and I sold it by the end of 2020. And I mean, it was like I could write an entire book about that experience. It was a dream come true. I mean, just kind of zooming with all of these major publishers and editors. And I ended up selling it to Michael Sugar at Sugar 23. It's published with HarperCollins. And Michael said to me, great, we love this. Can you give us a first draft in 9 months? And I was like, sure, no problem. Because I was so excited to have a book deal, right? I just said yes to everything. And I figure I'll figure that out later.
Like, are you nuts? 9 months to write a book?
Yeah, really? That was a huge, while I was juggling my real estate career, which was, and my 2 kids. I'm a mother of 2 children. So it was a lot, but I did it. I can't believe I did it some days. I look at that book and I think, there's a lot of words in there. How did I get there?
What do you think it took for you to complete this? Like, I mean, when we say, 9 months is a very aggressive schedule. Even though you already had 2 chapters written, right? What happened? Like, what was driving you?
Gosh, there was a lot driving me actually. I think I knew, speaking of opportunity, that I had this rare window, this moment in life that I had a chance to let my writer's heart beat again and to meet the moment. And so I just wasn't going to let it slip out of my hands. And, when I was younger, I would give up on things. And I somehow in the last, maybe after I divorced or something, I realized if you actually push through the hard parts, there's so much beauty on the other side. It's like, I love hiking. So I see that mountain in front of me and I'm like, oh, you got to be kidding me. And I'm like, you know what?
Like, not
it's
another
one
hill.
step. It's one step.
Yes.
Yeah. And if you take it step by step and page by page, sometimes sentence by sentence, you'll get there no matter what. Like you might not get, I wrote so many bad drafts. I can't even tell you. I made a promise to my editor and my agent. And I said, listen, you are going to see the worst first draft you've ever seen. Because if I knew I could meet that expectation, I could fulfill that. I could write a really bad first draft. And it just so happened that, writing is rewriting and I kind of pushed through it. But I had a belief in myself, I think, because my astrologer, oddly enough, and maybe it's putting a feather in my hand, like Dumbo, said, this is going to happen and this is going to happen. And so I had this belief in myself that I hadn't had in my life before. And I think she gave me permission to believe in myself. Yeah, it's really weird because I think I had given up on believing in myself until I spoke to somebody who said, no, this is in your birth chart. This is your destiny. Your destiny is to tell a story. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, if it's my destiny, then I'm going to do it. Like,
it's interesting that you say that. So did you feel this immediate, I know you weren't like into seeing astrologers before, meeting your astrologer and was it an immediate connection? What had you build that trust? Because
Yeah.
if you're saying that she gave you permission, which is a beautiful thing, right? We all need to, we all need to give ourselves permission, but we all need to be
Yeah.
given permission often without
Yeah.
judgment, right? Like,
Yeah.
was it an immediate connection? Like you bought in and you trusted her?
You know, so my best friend gifted me this reading in 2018. My father was diagnosed with a terminal illness. I had just had my heart broken from a romance that I thought was going to be my, next happily ever after. And my dog had died. I had my filed bankrupt, like everything had, I really had hit rock bottom. And so when my best friend gifted me this reading, normally I would have said, no, absolutely not.
Mhm.
Love my best friend to my core, but she's all about like, well, now I am too, but
I love that you're owning it now.
oh yeah, for sure. But then I was so judgmental
Like
on any kind of woo-woo
skeptical.
spiritual. I was so skeptical. Oh my goodness. I was raised in a very facts and logic, and my father was Mr. MIT, and I kind of thought that was me too. And I was so judgy. So I decided to say yes. I knew if I was going to change my life, I had to change my actions. And if I was saying no all the time before, I was going to say yes. And so I said yes to the reading. And I said, the first thing I said to the astrologer, her name is Stephanie Jordan. And I said, just so you know, I don't believe in astrology. And she said, that's okay. You don't have to. And I thought, well, that's strange marketing. And then I kind of started listening like, oh, okay, she's not trying to convert me into, she was just
Believing.
doing her job. Yeah. She wasn't trying to make me believe. She was just doing what she does, which is reading charts. And I thought in my mind, it was going to be very much like this movie, floating headscarf and bangles. And I don't know what I thought, but she was nothing like that. It wasn't in person. It was on the phone. And she was amazing. And somehow I felt seen. She knew things also about my life that I couldn't explain.
Mhm.
She knew, as I mentioned, about being a writer. She knew about my father being ill. She knew the way I dressed. She just called out certain things, certain years that things happened in my life that were, I almost drowned at age, 7. I almost, I got all these things. And I thought, well, this is defying coincidence after coincidence after coincidence. And I'm not talking about Googleable things, not that she didn't Google me. So yeah,
But
by
what
the
we
end of
learn
the
is
reading,
nothing's by chance.
right. Yeah. I mean, that's really what, for me, I mean, even in writing this book, I'm not out to prove if astrology is real or not real. That's really besides the point.
Have some people
Um,
asked you that question?
I think some people like try to poke holes in like, well, what about this? And how would they know that? And what about this planet? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't understand astrology,
You're like,
but
I'm
I
not
know,
certified in that.
no, but I know that it changed my life. And I know that, I mean, in such a major, huge way that I'm not letting go of that. I don't live
We
my
can
life
only
by
go
it.
by
I'm not.
what we feel, right? What the outcomes are based on our experiences.
Yes.
And
Yes.
given that, I mean, I know how connected clearly you felt to her, and called to to maybe explore some of the things that she talked about.
Yeah. And even she was shocked by it. She still is. She's like, oh, I can't believe you did this. And she goes, well, actually, it makes sense. You're a triple Plutonian alien, blah, blah, blah. And then she explains it away. And
You're like,
we had a
what's
good laugh
that?
about it. I know, like, I don't understand what that is. She's like, it's rare. It's weird. It's just, it makes sense. Just know it makes sense. And I'm like, okay, okay.
You're like, I'll go with that.
You
So
would go to Paris. Yeah. Yeah.
exactly. So then tell me, what does it mean when you say, I can't believe you did that? Because that's really the crux of the
Okay.
story of this beautiful
Right.
book, right?
Right.
Because
So,
I think like you've touched a bit on, I got a divorce, I met this guy, but I think when you really explain this whole lineage, you're like, wow, that
right.
is not something a normal person does. So I could see why you're triple Plutonian.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay, yes. So as I mentioned, I was at a very low point in my life in all kind of areas. I had been divorced. I was raising 2 kids. I was trying to rebuild in working in high-end real estate, kind of faking it till I made it. My dog had died. I'd filed bankruptcy. Another business I had collapsed. Like everything was low. Nicole, my best friend, gifted me this reading. all of a sudden I'm a believer. I went from cynic to believer. And at the end of the reading, I was having a really hard time moving on from an ex of mine. After I divorced, I started dating this man, Philippe, gorgeous, handsome French Philippe. It was wonderful post-divorce romance that only probably the French can do, and just what I needed, but it could grow into where I needed it to grow. And I ended up leaving him. We broke up, but my heart was just broken that I was so in love with him. And it's just sometimes those love stories don't work out, and I couldn't get over him. Oh my God, everybody around me was like, you got to do something, you know? So I asked her, she said, do you have any more questions for me? My astrologer said to me. And all of a sudden, being now the full-on believer as I am 45 minutes into this reading, I said, could you just look up his birthday? I want to make sure, what was that all about? Like, I was trying to make sense of it all. And so she looks up his birthday. He was born, well, first I messed up his birthday, but that's another story. So he was born on November 2nd, 1968 in Paris. And she looks it up against my birth chart, and she tells me he's in line with your point of destiny. She liked the word husband and marriage, and all these things came up. And I thought, oh my gosh, did I just miss my one chance at true love? He had moved on, and it didn't work when we tried. And then my sister called me, and she said, Dad has 2 weeks left to live. He wants to call a family meeting. My father lives about an hour away from us here, or lived in Santa Barbara. And I just hit like a whole new low, knowing that my father, my rock in life, was leaving this planet. And I just had this news, and I collapsed on the shower floor, as many of us do when we're crying and completely losing it. And then I got out of the shower, and I thought, well, I saw this photo of myself at age 6. And on the back of the photo, it was like this picture of childhood where you believed in anything. And I mean, there was endless possibilities. And I turned it over, and there was a quote from Shel Silverstein that said, anything can happen, child, anything can be. And I looked at myself, anything can, yeah. I mean, the whole quote, actually, it's such a beautiful poem. It's only 5 lines.
Please.
Okay, it's called Listen to the Mustn'ts. It's my favorite. Listen to the mustn'ts, child. Listen to the don'ts. Listen to the shouldn'ts, the impossibles, the won'ts. Listen to the never haves. Then listen close to me. Anything can happen, child. Anything can be. And my dad had written that on the back of this photo. And I looked in the mirror, and I had lost I have like the chills right now thinking about it. I had lost all hope. I didn't have any hope. I didn't believe anything could happen. I believed that, like, it was just bad. And then I got this like ping, and I was like, he's not the only one. I'm going to go to Paris to meet every other man I can find who was born on November 2nd, 1968. So I text my best friend, and I was like,
and I texted America. You started with Paris?
Well, it sounded easier because I thought, well, maybe I'm sure a lot of them have moved out, but it felt like there was. Well,
it's a smaller country.
I don't think I actually thought about it that through. I said, I just need to find every other man that was born on November 2nd, 1968. And she responded, oh, we're going to have to take a trip to Paris. Love her, best friend. And I kind of laughed it off. And then I went to go see my father, and I was really saying goodbye to him. I didn't know it in that exact moment. He started crying. He was married to my mom for 56 years, and they had this really beautiful love story. And he was very beside himself that he was leaving her when he promised he would take care of her forever. And I'm going to cry thinking about it because it was so beautiful. But when he started crying, it was the only time I had seen him cry. And my sister was sitting by my side, and she said, you got to lighten this up. Like, let's, we told him we loved him. We'd take care of our mom. We did everything right. But then we needed to also lift his spirits a little bit. She says, can you, do or say something, like, help me, let's lighten the mood a little. And I said, hey, Dad, what do you think about if I go to Paris to track down my soulmate based on an astrology reading and meeting? I told him this whole thing, and I talk about how astrologers have assistants, and I'm Mr. MIT, my father. He got real quiet. And I thought, oh gosh, maybe I went the wrong direction. Maybe my dad's going to die right here, thinking his daughter's completely lost her mind. And then he closed his eyes, and he was really at the end, and he opened his eyes and he said, "Sounds like you're going to Paris." And he said, "I'll meet you there." And it was the best gift the most selfless thing anyone's ever done for me is to just make a promise that his spirit would meet me in the streets of Paris. And so after he died, I hit grief hard. It really took me down, and my sister. And then I heard his voice I remembered that moment, and the recording of my astrology thing popped up on my phone while I was driving, or in my car audio while I was driving. And I thought, wait a minute, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go track down every man I could find who was born on November 2nd, 1968. And I thought it'd be really easy, by the way. It wasn't. It's very, very hard.
I don't think that sounds easy at all.
I thought I was going to just Google it. And then I was like, I'll just Google it. And it'll be, I've solved these, like my point, like this soulmate that, it's not my ex, it's somebody else, and there's still opportunity out for me. There's still a chance. There's still a second, third, fourth, fifth, life in there that I can chase down. And somehow it made perfect sense to me. I was grieving. This was my version of grief. But it also became this wild, fun adventure that it completely changed my life. I started, I did everything. I went on the radio, I made t-shirts, I made business cards, I had posters, I had people in Paris putting them up all over the streets. I did targeted advertising on Instagram and Facebook. I documented it. And then it became this whole thing. And then I went to Paris and I, tracked down 15 or 16 people total.
Wow. How long were you in Paris?
Less than a week. It was a very short trip. Yeah. With my sister and my
everything that you did was remote in an effort to seek and find this soulmate. And I'm assuming is male, right?
Yeah.
And essentially you found 17 men.
Yes. And one woman who was the daughter of a man who was born there. And when I got to Paris, my daughter being like, she's like, well, how do you know that who you're looking for is a man? You just know it needs to be somebody born on November 2nd, 1968. And I was like, oh yeah, you're right. So then I kind of opened up the window to anybody that I would meet there. And I met a lot of incredible people on this journey. Like, I mean, it's opened my world up in a way that I never even thought possible, standing in front of a mirror in the, at a crisis to, being here and talking to you about it. And I think a lot of that was the ability to dream again and to have hope again and to, I don't know, just to be open to the unknown.
Yes. And flow in the journey.
To flow in the journey and to realize like the importance of community. And that's huge for me. I've learned, I thought I was all alone. And I realized all the people that showed up that cheered me on, that, it's like, we have this community and it's all connecting through this core belief in love and that anything can happen and that magic can exist and that there's kindness out there and not giving up. I got knocked down so many times and I was like, I heard that crazy. And yeah, you got to get back up. It's not always easy, but
were people calling you crazy?
For the most part,
people that were ridiculing you.
Oh yeah, for sure. There was definitely I remember I posted in a Facebook group in Paris and there was a lot of people that were cheering me on, but there were also people that were like, you're crazy, especially the French believe less in astrology than people in LA do. Yeah.
Well, that's for sure.
Yeah. My ex called me crazy. He really, really did not understand what I was doing. He didn't understand why I was searching this planet for every other person with his birthday. Now he does not. Now we're very good friends. And he calls this his birthday book, which is really funny.
That's really beautiful.
It's been very healing, actually.
He was able to come full circle on it.
Oh, for sure.
And receive and hear.
Yeah, I was shocked that he was, and that I said, do you want me to, I let him read the manuscript, and my ex-husband and his wife and all the people that were in it. And I thought, well, a lot of people don't want to be in a memoir, but they all read it and they said, they just championed me on and said, you have my blessings, keep going. We're so excited for you. And I think
It's
it kind of,
interesting to me, some of the things that are coming up for me, it kind of goes back to the original thing about the astrologer, because people gave you permission.
mhm, mhm.
And it sounds as if like your dad gave you permission, your ex-husband gave you permission, your ex-boyfriend gave you permission, your community was championing you. So what do you draw from that? Like, what does that tell you about you as a person?
It's funny, that was actually in my first reading with Stephanie. She says, according to my chart, which is, I'm a Libra with a Pisces rising and a moon in Cancer. And I know there's so many other elements to it, so I can't even break it all down. But she did say, you care a lot what people think of you. It's time to let that go.
Mm,
And it's time to have fun. And
mm.
now you're in your, like, I was in like a new phase. She called it my superpower year, and just even knowing that, I'm like, this is my superpower year. I'm like, well, I better do something with
Yeah,
it.
I
And I
like
did.
it.
Yeah, but I think it's true. I've spent a lot of time, I guess, seeking permission and seeking approval. And even though not everybody, this journey actually was me testing that and realizing that I don't need permission. I had Stephanie's permission, and that was the one that really triggered me. But like on this journey, my ex during it did not give me permission, did not support me. He did call me crazy, and I did have a lot of people, but it was that all of a sudden I thought, she told me I'm not supposed to care anymore. You know what? She's right. Why do I care so much if, maybe I'll lose a couple clients in real estate, but you know what? Okay. I mean,
You
there's
weren't
more
meant to
people, and
be.
I didn't. I got more and more and more clients in real
Sure,
estate because they're like, wait a minute, you've got guts, you've got grit. My office, the agency was announcing this whole thing. They've supported me and like
I'm sure they're
beyond
so
the
proud.
agency. So proud. Yeah. And I'm proud to be part of their family. So, but it's been an incredible journey that I've seen people want to be a part of something a little weird and a
Mhm.
little risky and a little fun and with all good intention,
So it's interesting
I,
because in turn you gave them permission, or give
it's
others
true.
permission to
Yes,
be
I have.
weird, as you're saying, even though it's not weird,
Right.
or be a risk
Right.
taker, or
Right.
think outside the box, because
Yes.
we know that the most successful ideas are unconventional.
Right. Yeah.
That's a beautiful full circle
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
someone
It
giving you
really,
permission, you following through, you not caring and letting go, and then in
yeah.
turn giving others that permission. Because that's what when I heard your story, that's what you did
Yeah.
for me, was the
Mm.
inspiration of you taking this risk. I am sure will resonate with so many people. That's why it's so successful.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's really
And
beautiful.
especially when people say, oh, you're fearless. No, no, no. There's no
You're
fearlessness.
like, no,
There's
I'm
just,
addressing my fear.
yeah, it's just, you just kind of step into it and you're like, oh, okay, well, we're going to be a little scared, but we're going to do this,
Mhm. Like, it's
Yeah.
messy, but let's go. Right? Put on your big girl panties. It's time to go.
Uh, totally. I think it's even scarier to do nothing and to not take those risks or to try whatever it is. It doesn't have to be going on the radio or like going to Paris, or it can be anything.
Right.
But it is interesting, that full circleness. I don't think I actually saw it until right now. Thank you.
Mm. Well, thank you for allowing me to see that in you. I think that's such a gift. And that's the gift of coaching. But
That's cool.
I have another question for you. Something else came up for me around your dad and him saying, "I'll meet you there." I also fully tear up when I hear the story about you losing your dad and making those decisions at that time. And I know when somebody's ailing in death that we just want to relieve their pain. right?
Right.
And our own pain, our own suffering.
Right.
Did you
Yes.
feel his presence when you were in Paris?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah. And my sister did too. In the most subtle and in the big ways. I mean, I felt him in this. For me, I find a lot of, I was not spiritual, by the way, at all before this. It just hit me when he passed away. And I mean, I felt his spirit when he passed, and I felt him throughout, the time leading up in that year. And then in Paris, in the sky, in the clouds, there were signs all around. And I believe if you kind of open your eyes to them, once you see them, you can't unsee them. The way kind of the world flows, and you see, a certain bird, or we went to the opera house, and a candle and a ballet that he loved with my sister, and all these kind of, I was like, whoa, this is dad right here. And my sister when my father was dying, in that moment when he said, I'll meet you there, my sister promised to go as well. And that's what we did. It was like the three of us met on the streets of Paris together, and it was a beautiful kind of last trip. Maybe we'll do it again. I don't know. I don't think that'll ever be quite like that,
Does he show up in
where
your dreams?
No, not in my dreams, which is really interesting. Like for me, a lot of my spirituality is always like when I'm connected in nature. I got to get out of like the busy chaos and the energy that keeps me in my ego and my mind in the city, So if I can like get out into the mountains or trees,
Well, it
that's
sounds like a
usually...
hike is probably better for us to do together.
Okay, let's do that. Yeah,
I'm a
you're in
big
the right
hiker
area
too.
for it.
So like
I'm always hiking in your area.
yeah, I love, I think you and I are lovers of nature, and it quiets our minds. Yeah.
Yeah, that mind, that ego that makes so much noise sometimes. That's when the
Mhm.
fear, right? All that.
It takes us away from all of the things that we really want to create and manifest in our lives or bring to
Yeah.
life. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm super curious about the 17 men, or sorry, 16 men and one woman, or 17 men and one woman.
Okay, maybe 15 and 1. I got to go back and look. I can't
All
remember.
right.
I should
I'm not
know
going to
this.
hold you to the number, but we could also
Okay.
make up a couple other stories about those people, those characters. Just kidding. So tell me about it. I want to hear, what was it like? So you went on the radio, you put up banners. I mean, I just think that is ballsy. I can't even imagine.
Yeah. It's so funny. At the time, I didn't even know what I was doing I guess I kind of knew, but I was just so driven of, I'm going to do anything I can to find all these people. And one of the most productive ways was I opened a Tinder account. I used their passport thing. I went to Paris on Tinder. And I swiped right on every person that was 50, no matter what, no matter if it was like the wackiest looking, coolest, scariest, whatever person, 50, 50, 50, 50, 50. And my profile was, if you were born on, I think it was in French as well. If you were born on the 2nd of November, 1968, swipe right, everybody else swipe left. And then I went through one by one, and I was using Google Translate. I don't speak French. So, and I would, match with certain people. Is this your birthday? No. Why? Astrology. And I met the most incredible people, by the way. I mean, I still have some friends that I met. Yeah. Some men who are just like, love is love. Keep going. Faith is faith. Like, what is this? And some people thought I was crazy. Some of it was just like, Tinder is Tinder. I mean, it really is, you can be, get yourself into some really
I do know one of the founders of Tinder, and he did share with me, if he knew, he has a daughter now. He said, if I knew what it was going to be used for years ago, I don't think I would have actually been followed through on that. But you're right. Tinder is Tinder. Not that
I used it in but for some reason it has a reputation, right, as Tinder. But I think because I was kind of so open about this, nope, sorry, yes, 2 days does make a difference, and then we'd have these little conversations. So back and forth. I mean, I met thousands of people. So that's one of the ways that I tracked down many of the people that I met with. And they were all so different. And the cool thing, I had some people come up to me and say, well, I think it's very limiting that you'd only want to meet somebody. It's such a specific quality, but it actually opened me up I was no longer looking for a certain kind of type, right? Like a brunette who's over 6 feet, who has a certain job or lives in a certain part of town or whatever. I was open to every single human being. And so the only thing that mattered was birthday. And so it was really interesting way to get to know um, so many different individuals that were so different. I mean, one was this poet who used so many emojis, but also like used all these like beautiful poetry. I didn't understand it. And like some of it was a little out there, but it was so honest and open and genuine. It was very French and fun. And one was a chef, and, you know, one was a firefighter. And like, there was, they were all so different in the way that they saw me and life and the search for love. And it was actually a really interesting way to learn and love and accept all the different sides of myself too. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, because you're processing through
Yeah.
what you want and what you like at the same time, because it wasn't too far after your divorce also that you met Philippe, right? And
Oh, right after. Yeah, I didn't have time. I didn't take the time to get to know me.
yeah.
And
So it
that's what
was your
this
way
time
of processing through, who am I? Who do I want to show up as? And what's important to me?
yeah.
And am I
Yeah.
looking for Philippe? I mean, in all these men, potentially.
Yeah. Yeah. And there was a lot of that, and coming to terms with, you know, I was letting go of, part of this is a grief story for, you know, my father passing away, but a lot of this is a grief story of letting go of, my love. Actually, I wasn't letting go of my love. I was trying so hard to let go, right? Let go of my dad, let go of my ex-husband, let go. I don't want to hurt anymore. I just want to let it go. I was, you know, how long does it take to get over this?
Absolutely.
I realized, oh, I'm never going to. I
Mhm.
need to
You don't
like
have to
let
let
it
it go.
come in. And once I learned to love them, all of them, like my father, my ex-husband, like all the people in my life, and I
Yourself.
learned to gift. Oh yeah,
Mhm.
that's what it was. I learned to love and appreciate myself and change the way I operate and flow through life on like almost every level.
Mm.
Yeah.
What a
Yeah.
beautiful testament. And what a, it's interesting because just in the way that all of these men are different, each person processes through different emotions so differently. And some may view your way as being extreme, but perhaps as a Libra, you needed to go extreme, right? In
Yeah.
order for it to resonate with you, to know that
Yes.
it really had true purpose, you know?
Yes.
At least that's what I see within you. I have two questions for you. One is, and you kind of answered it a little bit, but how do you define the grieving process? Because grief is such a meaty topic, right? And it's so hard. And I know people say, well, there's 8 stages of grieving, right? But
Right.
like, how do you define it, like in your own heart?
Well, I don't know if I can, to tell you the truth, because it changes. It has changed so much. I think it's this ever evolving thing. I mean, for me, grief is love. And
Mm-hmm.
once I learned to accept that and not hate it so much, that I learned to embrace it, because it's a product of love. It is love. And so um, that to me is part of it. But even in the writing of this book, you know, I thought in many ways I was probably trying to keep these love stories alive, you know, to keep my father alive, to keep, you know, certain and then once I took the book out, the book was published 2 months ago, and I've just almost at the tail end of this book tour. um I have to let go of it, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and it's almost, I have to grieve all over again, because I
Yeah,
realized I
I
couldn't
see
bring
that.
my father back to life. I wrote about him, but I couldn't bring him back to life, and it actually took me down a little bit, because I thought, oh, I'm grieving all over again. But that's what grief is. That's
Mm-hmm.
just what it is. It comes out of nowhere for
Rising.
me. I only know my
Mm-hmm.
experience. Yeah. Yeah. And that's okay. That's
And I
okay.
think
You know?
what you're also defining is grief and loss doesn't have to have permanence, meaning
Right.
the permanence of the physical being not being here, but the essence of that person's soul or their energy is something we will have forever as a part of us.
Yes. 100%. And I think that is what helped me, and tapping into the spiritual side, kind of kicking out that mindset and that ego, and trying to lean more into that feeling that, my father's body and his, life is not here, but there is still a presence.
Mhm.
So I very much believe in that.
Yeah, I feel that my mom passed away, and it was interesting when I asked you, do you see him in your dreams? I don't see her in my dreams either that much, but I see her in other things as well. Um, Things that maybe are relevant or relative to who she was or the gifts that she brought to me, right? And I think one thing that somebody shared with me about grief is about it doesn't have to be permanent in the way similar to a book and a bookshelf, that there's times where you pull it down for reference and
Right.
times where you put it back up. But the
Yeah.
experience and the memories never go away. The love, the essence never goes away.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. That's beautiful. Yeah.
So I have one last question that I ask to everybody, which is, how do you define your top 5 core values? Well, maybe I have 2.
Um,
That's one. I have one more.
my top 5 core values: hope.
Mhm.
I think not giving up, resiliency,
Mhm.
determination, kind of all of those things.
Mhm.
Connection is huge for me, and I'm so grateful to recognize the importance of everybody that I've met on this journey, and everybody I have in my life, and whether it's somebody that I've just met, or my sister from day one. Connection and community are huge for me, and
Weird. It's like I'm
taking
thinking to myself.
care of that and holding it so precious, um, kindness and love. That's really what the goal is just to always lead with heart. And
Do you have a hard time leading with heart ever?
yeah, sometimes, but less now. Yeah, I can somebody was honking at me this morning when I was driving, and I didn't know why they wouldn't stop honking at me. It was just, they were so upset. And I realized, like, I wasn't feeling kindness and love. I was feeling attacked and annoyed, Yeah,
Interesting.
of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you try to, I mean, it's a conscious thing. I've put a lot of, it would be very easy, for my big modern family, for example, it's not easy to have, to divorce and then a remarriage and a blending of families and working of schedules. And sometimes you get annoyed. We've put so much love and time into our extended family that it takes time, it takes effort, and the rewards are so important. So if you can, for me, if I can choose to lead with heart as opposed to ego,
Mhm.
then I'll always win. We're all going to win,
I agree.
Yeah.
Well, it all comes back to love and to how do you want to treat how do you want to be treated, right? And
Yeah.
somebody doesn't write a book like this unless they are all love. And that's
Thank you.
who you are at your essence.
Thank
And
you.
everybody gets that from below. It's beautiful. So, my last question is, how do you bring fun into your life? Because that's clearly one of the reasons why you chose to write this book, and you were looking
Yeah.
to reinvent yourself and all the like. So, how do you bring fun into your life?
I mean, I think the trick for me is to try to don't be scared. I think it can be scary. It can even be, you can feel like you're not deserving of fun. And for many years, I thought I didn't deserve to have fun. I had to be a mom, and I had to work, and I had to do all these responsibilities, take care of everybody around me. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. This is not helping anybody, because I'm not living in a light place. I'm living in kind of a heavier place. And I think bringing fun into my life and into others at the same time, for me, that's what fun is, like kind of being like, okay, we're all going to do this together, Yeah. And I think for me, one of the biggest things, the hurdles that I had, was saying out loud what I wanted to do. And I think you don't have to do it the way I did it. But it's important to write down what you really want, whether it's fun or something you know, anything. And then you actually become accountable to it. And
Becomes real.
so it becomes real, and you don't have to announce it on the radio. You don't have to make a t-shirt. You don't have to make business cards. You don't have to make posters and plaster them all over the city. But I got to tell you, that's fun. Like I would
so
take
fun.
that year. It was so much fun. I mean, I was putting up posters in the bathroom at LAX, like by the, like I wallpapered. I mean, could I have gotten arrested or like a ticket for vandalism? Probably, yeah. But I was like, you know, when else am I going to do this? And it took me on this incredible journey, and it was fun.
Yeah. Well, I love it. And I just want to thank you for your time. Thank you for showing up with your entire heart, with the love that you give to everybody, and for inspiring all of us to continue to pursue what's important to us, to live with resilience and love and laughter, because that's what's important in life.
So important. So important. Thank you so much for having me.
All
my love.
Well, this is Lena. All my love too. Is there anything you want to leave people with, like as we close this interview? First and foremost, obviously, we all want people to go and purchase this amazing book, All Signs Point to Paris. This would be an amazing gift for anybody for the holidays. But what else do you want to tell them?
You know, in a conversation that I was having with my father, when he said he would meet me in Paris, he said to me, and these were some of his last words, always believe in magic and never give up on love. And it's my go-to. So if I ever think I want to give up on all of it, just like believe in magic again, believe in love, you know, always believe in magic and never give up on love. So if anyone out there needs to hear it, I mean, it's a good one.
And they do need to hear it, because right now the world needs more love.
Yeah. Yeah.
Love, love, love. Dun, dun, dun. Can you give people your Instagram so they know where to follow you?
Absolutely. Yes. You can follow me at Natasha Sizlo. That's my Instagram for my book and my love life, and all things personal. And then for real estate, if anybody out there is looking to buy or sell a home, I work out of the Beverly Hills office at the agency. You can see me on the Netflix show in the last episode. But that Instagram, did you see it? Yeah. That is at Natasha _ the agency RE. So that's, and then my website is Natasha Sizlo.
And that's Sizlo, just so that we're clear.
You got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much again for your time. And I just send you a bunch of love, and I'm just really grateful.
Thank you. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful.
It's a love fest. See ya.